trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported.
Why 6 months in did you and the Biden administration say that you're going to close the border?
Trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know, because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
That wasn't going to fix the problem. Stop lying, Vice President Harris.
The people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what
solutions like the border wide open.
Run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you
solutions like inflation.
Tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch.
What are you talking about?
You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer.
Why?
What you will also notice is
at 6 months,
his rallies
did you talk about closing the border you had open for 3 years? That's the question, ma'am. That's the question.
About your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
We need, we desire, we want the border closed.
Actually puts you first.
Close the border.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of
allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't
millions of people.
Aurora or Springfield. A lot of
Aurora, Colorado. Springfield, Ohio.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Haitians are eating dogs, eating cats.
The pets.
They're in Elberton, Georgia, working at the chicken factory, doing the same thing on a smaller scale. Elberton, Georgia.
As far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again.
Make America great,
guys.
Make
America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
He's a liar.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
He's a liar.
The people on television say my dog was eaten by the people that went there.
That's right.
Again, Springfield
We've seen the footage.
Of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You're talking about extreme.
There she goes, giggling. She can't answer.
I think one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush.
Those rhinos in name only.
McCain,
those career politicians.
The endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member
a warmonger.
And if you want to really know,
a war criminal. 20 years he's been a war criminal.
The president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is
deep state, career politicians. Absolutely.
With President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who've worked with him.
Those sellouts,
a four-star
those people
general,
sell out
has said he
the
has contempt
people
for
of
the
this
Constitution
country.
of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former
John Bolton is a
Secretary of
liar.
Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never
Milley is a
survive
liar.
another Trump term. And when we
Career
listen
politicians.
to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond.
Yeah. Thank you. Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people.
Yes.
Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I get to know the guys and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him.
Fire him.
Take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him.
Mark
So he writes a
Esper.
book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look
Esper,
at the
Mark
economy.
Esper
Look at
fired
the
him.
inflation.
He wrote a
They
book.
didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good
Inflation.
way not to have
Inflation.
books written about you.
That's right.
But just to
You don't
finish,
fire
I got more
anybody.
votes than any
Omarosa.
Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
With
You also
local
said
police.
you would use local police. How would you
Deportation.
deport 11 million undocumented immigrants?
21
The
million.
number is much higher.
21
Take us through
million.
this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They
Because
allowed
of the
criminals,
Democratic
many millions
liberal
of criminals.
order.
They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down?
Way down.
Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country.
Yes.
And this
Border
would be
wide
one of the
open.
greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country.
Close
Millions
the
of people
border.
let in. And all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime
Every time a black person break the law, they go to jail. Every time a black person break the law, they go to jail.
We have a new form of crime. It's called
You
migrant
break the
crime,
law.
and it's happening
Migrant
at levels
crime,
that nobody
you go to
knows about.
jail.
Trump, as you know, the
Go
FBI
back
says
home.
overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for
34
national security crimes,
convictions.
economic crimes, election interference,
Yeah, they call that lawfare. Lawfare.
for sexual assault, and his next big
Sexual
court
assault from
appearance is
40
in
years
November
ago.
at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement.
Respect for the rule of law.
President called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this
That's
race.
lies.
It is
You're
important that we
lying.
move forward.
You're
that we turn
lying.
the page on this same old tired rhetoric.
You're the
and
same
address
old tired
the needs
rhetoric.
of the
You're the
American
career
people. Address
politician.
what we need to do.
You
about
sold
the
us out, ma'am. You
Address what we must do to support our small businesses. Address bringing down the price of groceries. But
You got the price of groceries up. You and sleepy Joe Biden.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent.
Yes.
I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest of them.
Lawfare.
And you saw
Look
that
at
with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization
Law.
in this country.
Yes.
They weaponized the Justice
The
Department.
Justice
Every
Department.
one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis
Yes.
to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York.
in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States.
That's a lie.
Weaponize
That's a lie.
of justice.
You've
against
already
his political
weaponized.
enemies.
You already
Someone who
weaponized the Department of Justice.
expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails.
Freedom,
Because certainly we know
liberty.
the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him.
But
It's
you
up to
want
the
to stop
American
them?
people.
Vice
stop
President Harris, thank you. Lindsay.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
This is the one that weaponized, not me.
Tell him.
Weaponized.
She weaponized.
Probably took a bullet to the head
Yes.
because of the things that they say about me.
Yes.
They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy.
Yeah.
They're the threat.
They're the threat to
They
democracy.
take Russia.
Russia, Russia,
investigation.
Russia.
That went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay.
Vice President Harris, in your